when the last dragon sang the lullaby of a dying kingdom. The kingdom of Aerath once glittered like a jewel beneath the golden sun. Its mountains gleamed with silver veins, and its rivers whispered songs that carried through emerald valleys. But now silence ruled. The air hung heavy with the weight of sorrow, and the once lush meadows had turned pale and gray. The heart of the kingdom had stopped beating long ago, and its people, what few remained, lived only in the shadow of what was. At the edge of the crumbling world, deep within the misty peaks of the Elaren Mountains, a song stirred. It was faint, a whisper carried by the wind, a melody older than stone, older than the stars themselves. Few could hear it, and fewer still understood what it meant. But those who did trembled, for they knew the song belonged to the last of the dragons. Her name was Serythra, the Silver Flame. She was the final voice of her kind, the last guardian of Aerath's heart. Once, dragons soared across the skies in radiant flocks, their wings painting the heavens in colors unseen by mortal eyes. They were the keepers of balance, protectors of the realm's hidden magic. But that age had faded like dying embers. Humans, hungry for power, had broken the sacred bond. Kingdoms rose and fell on the wings of greed, and the dragons vanished, one by one, until only Serythra remained. Serythra slept within the hollow of a mountain, her scales dulled by centuries of dust. Her once blazing eyes were dim now, heavy with memory. She dreamed of the days when she had danced in the clouds with her kin, when kings bowed before the old pacts, and when the world still remembered how to dream. But that was long ago, and in the silence of her slumber, she felt it, the final heartbeat of Aerath slowing, faltering. The land was dying. The magic that once pulsed through its rivers and stones had thinned to almost nothing. And somewhere far below, a dying queen whispered a prayer to the forgotten stars. In the ruins of the old palace, Queen Elaren knelt before the shattered throne. The grand hall, once bright with banners and laughter, was now nothing but shadow and dust. The roof had fallen in places, and ivy crept like green veins across the broken marble. She was young, barely 30, but sorrow had carved years into her face. Her crown was rusted gold, her gown torn and faded. Yet her spirit, though fragile, still glimmered faintly, like a candle in the dark. "Is this how the world ends?" she murmured. Her voice echoed softly, swallowed by the hollow chamber. No one answered. The guards were gone. The servants had fled months ago. Only the silence remained, thick and cruel. Elaren rose slowly and walked to the window. The city of Aerath spread below her, a city that had once been the heart of the world. Now it was a graveyard. Empty streets wound between blackened houses. The fountains were dry, and the great clock tower no longer tolled. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. And then she heard it, a sound faint as breath, a song. It drifted through the cold air, coming from far beyond the mountains. A low, haunting melody, filled with both sorrow and warmth. It made her eyes sting, and for a brief moment, she felt as though the world was holding its breath to listen. "That sound," she whispered. "It can't be." An old voice spoke behind her. "It is," said the Grand Seer, emerging from the shadows. His robes were frayed, his long white beard tangled like cobwebs. "The dragon sings again." Elaren turned, startled. "I thought they were gone, extinct." "All but one," the seer said. "Serythra, the last of the silver flames. Her song means the end draws near." The queen's heart tightened. "The end." He nodded gravely. "The lullaby of the dying world. When the last dragon sings, Aerath's light will fade forever. The bond between sky and soil will break. Nothing will grow again. The magic will die." Elaren stared at the distant mountains where the sound had come from. The song was faint now, but it lingered in her mind like a dream she could not wake from. "There must be something we can do," she said. "Something left to save." The seer shook his head. "Perhaps not to save, but maybe to understand. The dragon does not sing without reason. There may yet be meaning in her sorrow." Elaren turned to face him fully. "Then I must go to her." The seer's eyes widened. Your Majesty, you cannot. The journey to the Elaren peaks is perilous. The mountains are alive with storms and shadows. No one who travels there returns. Then I will be the first, Aerath said softly. If the kingdom must end, I will not let it die alone. I must know why the last dragon sings. The seer bowed his head. Then may the stars guide you, Queen of Aerath. And may you find what remains of the world's heart before it fades. That night, Elara gathered her cloak and her sword, a blade passed down through generations of her family, though it had not seen battle in years. She took nothing else but a small silver locket containing a portrait of her late husband, King Daron. He had died in the last war, fighting to defend a border that no longer mattered. As she stepped beyond the palace gates, she looked back once more. The city glowed faintly under the pale moonlight, its emptiness echoing louder than any sound. She whispered a final goodbye, and then she rode north, toward the mountains where the dragon's song awaited. The wind was sharp, carrying the chill of early winter. Along the road, she passed ghost villages, houses abandoned, doors hanging open as if the people had vanished mid-breath. Broken carts lined the paths, and old banners flapped weakly from the walls. Every now and then, she saw the faint shimmer of old magic, like dust rising from forgotten memories. Once, Aerath had been alive with enchantment. The forests had sung. The rivers had glowed under the moonlight. But now, all that remained were echoes. As dawn broke, Elara reached the foot of the Elaren Mountains. They rose like a wall of stone and mist, their peaks lost to the clouds. The path was steep and narrow, winding through cliffs and cold waterfalls. She dismounted and began the climb on foot, her breath forming white ghosts in the air. And then, through the wind and snow, the song came again, clearer this time, deeper. It trembled through the air like a pulse, filling her heart with warmth and grief all at once. She closed her eyes, listening.
It was not just a song.
It was a memory, a lament of time itself. And in that moment, Elara realized something. The dragon was not only mourning the kingdom, it was calling. But calling for what or whom? The path into the Elaren Mountains was unlike anything Queen Elara had ever known. The air grew thinner with every step, the sky darker. Shadows twisted across the cliffs like living things. Strange whispers echoed in the wind, sometimes in voices she recognized, her husband's, her people's, even her own. It felt as if the mountain itself was alive, testing her resolve. Still, she pressed on. Snow began to fall, soft and steady, covering the trail in a cold white veil. Her boots sank deep, her cloak heavy with frost. But she did not stop. The dragon's song continued to drift through the air, sometimes near, sometimes far away, always pulling her forward. It was sorrowful, but beneath the sorrow was something else, hope, perhaps, or memory. By the third day, Elara reached a vast gorge. A broken bridge stretched across it, old and cracked, the ropes frayed from years of storms. Beneath, a river of mist flowed, whispering secrets from the deep. She hesitated, her breath trembling. "This is madness," she murmured. But madness was all that remained to her. She stepped onto the bridge. The planks creaked under her weight, and the ropes groaned. Halfway across, a gust of wind roared through the gorge, nearly sweeping her into the abyss. She clung tightly, her heart pounding, whispering a prayer to the stars. When she reached the other side, she fell to her knees, exhausted, but alive. And faintly, she heard something, a voice. Not the dragon's song this time, but something else entirely. "Who walks the path of silence?" the voice asked, deep and echoing, as if spoken by the mountain itself. Elara rose to her feet. "I am Elara of Aerath," she said, her voice trembling but steady. "Queen of the dying kingdom. I come seeking the last dragon." The air grew still. Then, from the mist ahead, a figure appeared, tall, cloaked in gray. Its face was hidden beneath a hood, its eyes glowing faintly with silver light. It carried a staff made of twisted wood and crystal. The dragon does not receive mortals, the figure said. She dreams in the hollow where time sleeps. To disturb her is to invite death. Elaren met the stranger's gaze. Then so be it. Death has already taken my people, my home, my heart. If I must die to understand why, then I will. The figure studied her in silence, and then, slowly, lowered the hood. It was not a man beneath the cloak, but something older, a being neither spirit nor mortal. His face shimmered with faint scales, and his eyes reflected stars. I am Arinder, he said, last of the dragon keepers. We were once the bridge between your kind and hers. When the bond broke, my brothers turned to dust, and I was left to guard what remained. Alara's heart quickened. Then you know her song? Arinder nodded. I do. It is the lullaby of endings. The last song of the world that once was. She sings to remember, and to let go. Let go of what? Elaren asked. Of everything, Arinder replied softly. Of magic, of sorrow, of life itself. When her song ends, the last flame of Aerath will fade, and the world will fall into eternal sleep. Elaren felt a chill deeper than the mountain wind. Then I must reach her before the song ends. You cannot stop the song, Arinder said. But perhaps you can understand it. And in understanding, maybe something can still be born anew. He turned and began walking into the mist. Follow me, Queen of Aerath. The path ahead is not kind, but your heart is brave. That may be enough. They walked for hours through valleys of stone and light. Strange crystals jutted from the ground, glowing faintly blue. The air shimmered with forgotten magic. Elaren could feel the pulse of the mountain beneath her feet, slow and heavy, like the heartbeat of a sleeping god. As they climbed higher, Arinder spoke of old times. He told her of the age when dragons and humans lived as one, when the skies were alive with song, and the land bloomed with endless wonder. But then came the wars of greed, when men sought to steal dragon fire for themselves. The bond shattered. The magic that tied sky to earth began to wither. The dragons withdrew into their sanctuaries, he said. One by one, they fell silent, until only Serythra remained. She sang the world to sleep to spare it from pain. Elaren listened, her heart aching. But if she ends a world, where will we go? Perhaps nowhere, Arinder said. Or perhaps to a dream that waits beyond endings. Dragons do not destroy, they transform. Maybe her song is not death, but change. They reached a cavern mouth at dusk. The entrance was vast, shaped like the open jaw of some great beast. Warm light pulsed faintly within, like a heartbeat in the dark. The air smelled of smoke and starlight. Arinder stopped. This is as far as I go. Beyond this point lies the heart hollow. She will know you are coming. Elaren looked at him, uncertain. Will she harm me? If you come with fear, perhaps, he said. If you come with truth, she will listen. The dragon's song answers to the soul, not to words. She nodded slowly, tightening her cloak. Then I will speak with truth. Arinder bowed his head. May her fire remember your name. And with that, he vanished into the mist, leaving Elaren alone at the mouth of the cavern. The light grew brighter as she entered, and the walls around her shimmered with veins of silver. Every sound echoed softly, her breath, her footsteps, even her heartbeat. Deeper inside, she saw carvings along the stone, images of dragons, kings, and stars. It was a history of the world, told in flame and shadow. At last, she reached the end of the path, a vast chamber filled with shimmering air. And there, at its center, lay Serythra. The dragon was enormous, her scales pale as moonlight, her wings folded like mountains of glass. She did not move, yet the air trembled around her with power. Her eyes were closed, and from her chest came that haunting sound, the lullaby of a dying world. It was beautiful, terrible, and endlessly sad. Elaren fell to her knees. Tears welled in her eyes. The song wrapped around her like a memory she had forgotten she owned. Serythra, she whispered. Last of your kind, why do you sing? The dragon's eyes opened slowly. Twin orbs of molten silver gazed down at her. When she spoke, her voice was not a sound but a feeling, a deep warmth that filled the chamber. "Because all things must end, child of men," she said. "And endings deserve to be remembered." Elaren bowed her head. "But must the world die with you?" Serythra's gaze softened. "The world is not dying, Elaren of Aerath. It is being born again. You only see death because you have forgotten how to dream." Elaren looked up, her voice trembling. "Then teach me how to remember." The dragon studied her for a long moment, and then her great wings unfurled, scattering light like falling stars. "Then come closer, little queen," Serythra said, her voice like thunder and lullaby all at once. "And listen to the heart of the world." Elaren stepped closer to the great dragon, her heart pounding as though it would burst. The ground beneath her trembled, not with threat, but with life itself. The cavern pulsed with light, silver, gold, and faint hues of blue, dancing along the walls like starlight trapped beneath the earth. Serythra's massive head lowered until her eyes were level with the queen. In those depths, Elaren saw reflections, visions of the past, of glory, of ruin, of love. "Tell me, queen of the fading throne," Serythra spoke, her voice echoing like music through the stone. "Why do you seek me when all others have fled into the dark?" Elaren took a deep breath. "Because I cannot watch my kingdom die without understanding why. The rivers have dried, the forests wither, and even the stars seem to turn away. I heard your song and thought perhaps you sing for us. Perhaps there's something left to save." Serythra's great wings shifted slightly, sending ripples of light across the floor. "You speak of saving," the dragon said softly. "But what do you wish to save? The stones of your palaces? The crowns of your ancestors? Or the spirit of the world that once lived within you all?" Elaren hesitated. Her fingers brushed the locket around her neck, and she thought of her people, tired faces, empty streets, the laughter that had long since vanished. "I want to save them," she said. "The people who still believe, even when all hope is gone. The children who ask when the sun will rise again. If there is a way, I must find it." The dragon studied her for a long moment. "Then you must first see what has been forgotten." She lifted one enormous claw and pressed it gently against the stone. The ground shimmered, and suddenly the cavern around them changed. The air rippled, turning to golden mist. Elaren gasped as the walls melted away, and the world of the past unfolded before her eyes. They stood now upon a mountain ridge bathed in sunlight. The sky was vast and alive with dragons, hundreds, maybe thousands, each one gliding through the air with wings of fire, crystal, and shadow. Below, cities sparkled like gems, and rivers glowed with threads of magic. The air was filled with music, the song of dragons and men united in harmony. Serythra stood beside her, radiant and strong. "This was Aerath," she said, before greed took its first breath. Elara's eyes widened in awe. "It's beautiful." "It was balance," Serythra continued. "Men and dragons shared the same flame. You built your kingdoms with our fire, and in return, we drew wisdom from your hearts. We were one." Then the light began to dim. The dragons in the sky wavered, their songs turning from joy to anguish. Cities burned. The rivers blackened. Soldiers marched across fields, bearing weapons made from dragonone and scales. Elaren covered her mouth, horrified. "What happened?" Serythra's voice grew heavy. "The first kings sought power beyond measure. They captured the hatchlings and bound them in chains of magic. They took what was sacred and turned it into war." Elaren watched as a vision of a young dragon screamed, fire pouring from its throat while men drove spears of light into its heart. The skies darkened until only smoke remained. "When the last great war ended," Serythra said, "only a few of us remained. We retreated to the high places and sang to the stars, asking them to remember what men had forgotten." The vision faded, leaving them once again in the glowing cavern. Elara's heart ached. "You should hate us," she whispered. Serythra's voice was soft but filled with age-old sorrow. Hate is a flame that burns the one who carries it. We did not hate, we mourned. Even now I mourn. For though your kind brought ruin, they also brought dreams. And dreams, my child, are the last refuge of all who fall. Elaren felt tears run down her face. Then why sing the lullaby now? Why end the world when there might still be hope? The dragon tilted her head slightly. Because hope must die before it can be reborn. Elaren frowned, confused. I don't understand. Serythra exhaled slowly, and a wave of warm light spread across the cavern. The very air hummed with ancient power. Aerath's magic is not gone. It sleeps. The world's heart lies wounded, buried beneath the weight of sorrow. Only when all that clings to the old world fades can the new flame awaken. My song is not death, Elaren, it is mercy. For a long moment, there was only silence between them. Elaren knelt on the glowing stone floor, her heart heavy with the truth. She finally asked, "Then what am I to do? If I cannot stop your song, how can I help my people?" Serythra leaned closer, her breath a warm wind that smelled faintly of ash and rain. "You must choose what is worth saving," she said. "A kingdom built on sorrow cannot stand. But if you carry the heart of what was pure, the courage, the kindness, the love, it can bloom again in another age." Elaren closed her eyes. "Then you mean to end everything?" "I mean to sing the world to sleep," Serythra replied gently. "And when it dreams again, it will remember you." The queen looked up, tears shining in her eyes. "If I stay, will I become part of that dream?" The dragon smiled, a slow, ancient smile that shimmered like moonlight on water.
Yes.
"And in that dream, you will never fade." The light in the cavern dimmed slightly, and a deep hum began to fill the air, the first notes of the dragon's final song. The ground trembled softly, and distant thunder rolled through the mountains. Elaren stood, her cloak fluttering in the rising wind. "If this is to be the end," she said quietly, "then I will not run from it. I will stay and see your song to its last note." Serythra nodded. "Then stand with me, Elaren of Aerath. Let the world remember that in its final breath, there was still courage." The dragon lifted her wings, and the air shimmered with light. The melody that poured from her throat was no longer mournful. It was vast, radiant, filled with both sorrow and peace. The lullaby of endings had become a song of promise. Elaren felt the magic surge through her body, filling her with warmth and clarity. Visions flooded her mind, of her people smiling again, of flowers blooming on new soil, of a sun rising over a land reborn. And then, faintly, she heard another sound beneath the dragon's song, a second voice. Soft, fragile, human. Her own voice, joining the melody. Without meaning to, she began to sing. Her words carried through the cavern, blending with the dragon's, forming a harmony of earth and flame, of human and eternal. For the first time in centuries, the world listened. When the song faded, silence returned, but it was no longer empty. It was full, alive, waiting. Serythra's eyes dimmed gently. "It has begun," she said. "The world sleeps, but it dreams of light." Elaren's body felt heavy. The glow around her began to dissolve, like mist under morning sun. "Will I see it again?" she whispered. "The new world." The dragon's gaze was soft. "You will be its first breath." And with that, the world faded into light. Light. Endless, pure light. Elaren floated within it, weightless and calm. She did not know if she was dead or dreaming. The warmth that surrounded her felt like the touch of the sun on spring mornings long gone. There was no pain, no fear, only peace. She remembered the dragon's words echoing softly within her. "You will be its first breath." Then the light began to shift, swirling into colors, soft blues, gentle golds, deep greens. Shapes formed, trees growing from mist, rivers of silver threading through the air, stars blooming like flowers. It was a vision of creation, a world reborn from memory. Elara reached out, and the light responded, curling around her fingers like silk. Her heart swelled with awe. This was Aerath, but not the broken, dying kingdom she had left behind. This was Aerath renewed, a reflection of all it could have been. But as she gazed at it, she realized something strange. The world shimmered like a fragile painting, incomplete, waiting for something to anchor it. It pulsed faintly, as though searching for a heart. And then she understood. This was the dream the dragon had sung into being. Elara heard footsteps behind her, soft, careful. She turned, and to her astonishment, saw a familiar face. Erinder, the last dragon keeper, walked toward her through the haze. His staff glowed faintly, and his once-worn robes looked whole again, flowing like streams of starlight. "Is this," Elara began, unable to finish. "The dream between endings," Erinder said softly. "You stand in the cradle of the world's rebirth. Serythra's song has bound you here, between what was and what will be." Elara looked around in wonder. "It's beautiful, but it feels lonely." Erinder nodded. "All beginnings do. The first dawn is always quiet." She stepped closer to him. "Where is Serythra? I can't hear her song anymore." Erinder's expression softened. "Her song is finished. She has become the wind that will guide the new world's breath." When her voice fell silent, her spirit spread across creation. "You breathe her now with every breath." Alara's heart ached with both grief and gratitude. "Then she's gone." "Not gone," Erinder corrected gently. "Changed. The song never truly ends. It simply takes another form." They walked together through the glowing landscape. As they passed, the ground blossomed with color. Tiny flowers of silver and white sprang from their footsteps. Each petal shimmered like memory taking root. Elara paused by a river of light and looked at her reflection. For the first time in years, she looked whole. The lines of sorrow were gone from her face, replaced by calm. But her eyes still carried the weight of what she had seen. "I thought I came here to save my kingdom," she said quietly. "But I think now maybe I came here to say goodbye." Erinder smiled sadly. "Goodbyes are not endings, Queen of Aerath. They are bridges. And through them, something new is always waiting." Suddenly, the sky above them shimmered and cracked with faint thunder. The dream trembled. Erinder's staff flared with light. "What's happening?" Elara asked, alarmed. "The dream is shifting," he said. "The world outside begins to stir. The magic of Aerath is waking, and with it, choice."
Choice.
He nodded. "You are not bound to this place. The dragon's gift allows you to choose. Remain within the dream to guide the new world as its spirit, or return to the mortal realm, to rebuild from the ashes." Elara froze, torn. To remain meant peace, eternal rest in the cradle of creation. To return meant pain, loneliness, and struggle, but also the chance to help her people, to plant new hope in the soil of ruin. Her heart trembled between the two paths. Erinder's eyes glowed faintly. "Your kingdom still breathes faintly, though wounded." Not all fell when the song began. Some remain, waiting, not knowing what has become of their queen. "Then they need me," Elara whispered. "They do," he said gently. "But to return means carrying both the light of the dragon and the sorrow of her song. You will be changed. You will not age as before. You will walk as both mortal and echo, a bridge between worlds." She looked up at him, uncertain. "Will I see her again? Serythra?" Erinder smiled faintly. "Every time the wind sings through the mountains, you will hear her voice. Every sunrise will carry her warmth. She will never truly leave you." Elara closed her eyes. The sound of the dragon's lullaby echoed faintly once more, not as sorrow, but as promise. She made her choice. The world of light began to dissolve around her. Erinder bowed his head. "Go, Queen of Renewal. Let the last note of the lullaby guide you home." Elara felt her body grow heavy again, her heartbeat quickening. The warmth faded into cool air. When she opened her eyes, she was lying upon the floor of the dragon's cavern. The walls were dim, but no longer dead. The silver veins glowed gently, like veins of living light. Her cloak was torn, her sword beside her, but her heart felt strong. She sat up slowly. "Serythra," she whispered. A faint wind moved through the cavern, carrying with it the soft hum of the lullaby, faint but eternal. It wrapped around her like an embrace. She smiled through her tears. "Thank you." As she stood, she saw that the stone beneath her feet had changed. Flowers, tiny white blossoms, had begun to grow through the cracks. The air smelled of rain. For the first time in years, she felt the pulse of magic, alive, breathing, returning. Elaren made her way down the mountain. The snow had stopped, replaced by gentle mist. Rivers once frozen were beginning to flow again. The land itself seemed to sigh in relief. At the base of the mountains, she found the ruins of a village she had passed before. But now, faint smoke rose from one of the chimneys. She approached carefully and saw faces, people she had thought long dead, stepping out of their homes, looking to the sky in wonder. Children pointed at the returning sunlight breaking through the clouds. "Your Majesty," cried one of the villagers, his voice trembling with disbelief. "You're alive." Elaren smiled softly. "So is Aerath." They fell to their knees before her, but she shook her head.
No. Rise.
"There is no queen now, only a beginning." The people stood, confused but hopeful. One child ran forward and handed her a small flower, white with silver edges. Elaren recognized it immediately. It was the same bloom she had seen in the dragon's dream. She took it gently. "This," she whispered, "is the first breath of the new world." That night, Elaren sat by a small fire as the survivors gathered around her. The stars above seemed brighter, closer than before. She spoke little, only watched the night sky in silence. In the distance, the wind carried a faint, familiar melody, the last dragon's lullaby. But this time, it did not sound like mourning. It sounded like a promise. Elaren looked up and smiled faintly. "Sleep well, Serythra," she whispered. "The kingdom dreams again." And somewhere in the high peaks of the Elaren Mountains, the wind answered her, soft, gentle, full of light. Days turned to weeks. The light returned to Aerath slowly, like dawn breaking after a long winter. The rivers flowed again, thin at first, then strong. The trees began to bloom once more, their branches heavy with pale flowers that shimmered faintly in the moonlight. The skies cleared, and the stars, long veiled by sorrow, shone brighter than anyone could remember. Elaren and her people began to rebuild. They had little left, no armies, no riches, only one another. But they worked with quiet hope. They gathered fallen stones, rekindled hearths, and sang to the children who had forgotten the sound of laughter. And each night, when the wind swept down from the mountains, it carried a faint melody, a soft hum that made the flames dance and the hearts of all who heard it feel light again. The people came to call it the dragon's blessing. One morning, as dawn painted the horizon gold, Elaren stood upon the balcony of her half-rebuilt palace. The city below was no longer a graveyard. It was a living thing again. The people had begun to return from the wild lands, carrying stories of strange miracles, lakes glowing under starlight, seeds sprouting in once barren soil, and gentle creatures of light wandering through the forests. Elaren knew what it meant. Serythra's song was still alive. She closed her eyes and listened. The wind moved softly around her, brushing her face like a whisper. For a moment, she thought she could hear the dragon's voice again, gentle, proud, full of love. "The world remembers, child of men. Do not forget what was lost." Elaren smiled. "I won't," she murmured. Later that day, she gathered her people in the central square. The fountain, once dry and broken, now flowed with crystal water. The crowd, farmers, artisans, soldiers, children, stood in a wide circle, eyes bright with wonder. "My people," Elaren began, her voice clear and calm. "We have known darkness deeper than the night. We have seen our world crumble and our hearts nearly fade. But we're still here, and that means something greater than victory." She paused, looking around at them. The weary faces, the hopeful eyes. The dragon sang a lullaby not to end the world, but to let it dream again. And we are part of that dream. From this day forward, Aerath will no longer be known as the Dying Kingdom. It will be known as the Kingdom Reborn. A murmur spread through the crowd, first whispers, then cheers. People smiled, hugged one another, and for the first time in a long time, they laughed without fear. Elara looked up at the sky and whispered, "You see, Serythra, your song lives on." That night, she returned to the mountains. Alone, she followed the trail she had once taken through the mists until she reached the mouth of the cavern where the dragon had sung her final song. The air was warm and filled with faint shimmering lights, tiny sparks that hovered like fireflies. The cavern felt alive, breathing softly. Elara knelt on the cold stone and placed her hand upon it. "You gave everything," she said quietly, "and we will never forget." The stone beneath her hand pulsed once, gently. The lights in the air began to swirl, forming a faint image, the outline of great wings, silver and luminous. Serythra's voice, soft as wind and deep as the earth, filled the chamber. "Elara of Aerath, you kept your promise." Tears filled the queen's eyes. "You kept yours too," she whispered. "The world dreams again," said the voice. "But remember, dreams must be tended. They fade if not cherished. Protect this new dawn, for it is fragile." The sky above shimmered with the first stars, and for a brief moment, she thought she saw the outline of vast wings stretching across the heavens. She whispered, "You're still watching, aren't you?" And from somewhere far beyond the clouds came the softest reply, "Always." A single white flower drifted down from the air and landed in her palm, a silver-edged blossom, glowing faintly in the twilight. Elara smiled, holding it close to her heart. "Then I will keep singing too," she said softly. That night, as the people of Aerath slept peacefully, the wind moved through the kingdom, over mountains, rivers, and fields, carrying with it the faint, eternal sound of a lullaby. The lullaby of the last dragon. A song not of endings but of beginnings.